Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dr. Nasir Sheikh Show. I'm your guest host. My name is Dr. Nasir, and we've got something great on tap for you. It's the continuing debate of American Asians here in America. And the question that was being put to them was, what about assimilation? And do you think that America is still a white supremacist nation? We're going to get to all of that in the next few seconds, folks. But before we do so, wanted to let you know, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, like, share, and follow us, comment below, let us know what you think. And this is part 2 of the debates that were on the Vice channel of Asian Americans being asked a question on immigration, assimilation, and whether or not the United States is a white supremacist nation. Let's get to the debate right now.
The non-Asian American world that we live in. Assimilation. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it a burden? Is it an opportunity?
Assimilation, I think I would define that as, in part, I think necessary to an extent because we are forced to in order to navigate this country. So I would say learning the language, learning how to properly behave, for example. That's in part kind of assimilation, making sure that you are
in line,
kosher in this society. And I think in part that means survival.
I think assimilation is not just a...
Got to ask this question right away where this girl basically said, we're forced to do it. Got to act a certain way. That's just not true. I don't know what she's talking about. You got to act a certain way. You're forced to do it. No, you come to this country. You bring your culture here with you. And then you know what? You can have both. But there's an American culture, an American identity. And then there's the culture of what your parents had. And you can bridge that gap together, but to see you're forced to behave a certain way, I don't know what the heck she's talking about.
A great thing, it's a necessary thing. No society can hold together where people have nothing in common, they don't speak the same language, they don't practice the same things. And you may look at something like just food habits or what you eat and think that's fairly frivolous, but the truth of the matter is that on a broader level, when we're talking about more big picture things, differences in race, culture, religion, all these things, people have fought wars, violent wars, killed each other over these things for thousands of years. If America is to hold together, assimilation, not just good or bad, necessary. I don't think it's going to be possible for America to survive as a stable, functioning society if people don't, to some degree, say, well, here's what we're going to commonly agree upon.
But who gets to choose it?
The majority culture, I suppose.
And what's majority culture?
The people with power.
And who's people with power?
Who's people with power?
White people.
Well, I don't know.
See what this idiot said right here? The purple-haired moron? I mean, she's part of SIMR, folks. SIMR, stupid, idiotic, moronic, retarded. White people! How about the crazy people that dyed their hair purple? Could they be the ones that are in power?
I'm gonna say it, white people. It's okay.
I'm gonna say it, white people. I'm gonna say it. Oh my God.
I don't know if that's necessarily so true. I mean,
Wait, can you
look
unpack?
at,
Yeah.
I don't think a particularly white quote unquote interest controls things like
In America.
pop culture.
Do you believe
Well,
white supremacy exists?
I think there are people who believe in it. I think there's people who all believe that their race is superior.
So you don't believe in white supremacy?
Do you believe America is a white supremacist state?
No, not at all.
And not found
No
by-
white supremacist state would even allow us to be doing this. I don't understand. So white supremacy.
Checkmate, right there. Got it right back. Boom! Boom! No white supremacist would allow us to be debating whether or not we're in a white supremacist society. And here's another thing I would say. We elected a black president. Well, half black, half white for 8 years, right? So did the white supremacists, did half of them vote for the black part of Barack Obama and the other half didn't vote for the black part of Barack Obama? Did half of them vote for the white part of Barack Obama and half of them didn't vote for the white part of Barack Obama? The white supremacists? Is that what you're trying to tell me? We've got a new prime minister in India, in Britain, who's of Indian, heritage, but he's British born or whatever. I mean, what are you talking about in terms of white supremacy, guys? Come on.
supremacists, there's just KKK people walking. Actually, I go around New York City. I notice that, like, I guess Brooklyn a little bit different. Most of the people here are not white, and they're doing their thing. So I don't understand.
What does doing their thing mean to you?
Going to work.
Are they making the same amount of money? Are they getting the same access to opportunities?
I think they're getting great access to opportunity.
Please unpack it. Are they equivalent? Are communities and communities that are leading culture, to your point, because you pointed to popular culture as something where, in your view, white people don't have the power, when the reality is it is the white executives who are profiting off of and exploiting predominantly black and brown bodies for their financial gain to then parade to us and tell us that we're thriving, when the reality is it is women of color, and it is black folks, and it is Asian American folks, and it is Hispanic folks, and it is people from marginalized communities who are disproportionately being impacted by every adverse thing that society is facing, while the few at the top who don't represent our communities are profiting. There are massive disparities based on race, based on class, based on gender, based on all of these things that shouldn't exist.
Well, nobody denies that there.
Now, that's this kid right here, this guy right here, another part of SIMR. My acronym, SIMR, stupid, idiotic, moron, retarded. He has basically swallowed the victim mentality, hook, line, and sinker. He basically said, the marginalized communities, the Indian community, the brown community, whatever. Are you kidding me? Take a look at Twitter, VJ Gaddy and all those others, okay? Fascists, okay? Taking down tweets. What type of power did they hold over the communications of everyday citizens in America and around the world? The guy at Google, how many executives are of either, born here in this country, but of Indian or South Asian or Asian heritage that you can say? Look at the amount of people on Wall Street that also are of Chinese, Japanese, Asian, South Asian, whatever you want to call it, heritage. And they're top level CEOs in banks, finance industry. I mean, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Then in terms of income, the average income of people coming of Asian communities is somewhere between $117,000 to $135,000 a year. That's average. The average for a white European Caucasian is about $77,000. I mean, in terms of power, there's a tremendous amount of power in terms of proportionality of people to the power, the power position that they hold. In the Asian community, it is well above the proportion of the people that are here in terms of the people that are holding powerful positions, prestigious positions. Doctors, what about that? Lawyers, attorneys, in the nursing profession, Filipinos. I mean, just to take Filipino in the nursing profession alone, what are they talking about? So I'm saying these guys, they just mouth things. They don't have anything. Victim mentality. And this one over here, this purple colored freak over here, basically, white people, God talking science, white people. Let us continue.
There's disparities or that.
Well, let's have Vince respond.
Or that, I think the question is, do they exist because of supposed white supremacy? And when I look at the fact that, virtually every corporation and institution bends the knee to diversity, celebrates every single Heritage Month, has all these programs, every single one toe the line for Black Lives Matter. I don't look at that and say, I don't look at that and say conservative white people are in power in this country. As a matter of fact, I'd argue to a large extent, you can talk about, what race or whatever people are, but is like a supposedly conservative white interest in power in America. I would honestly say I think it's the opposite of that.
I want to clarify one thing. You can be liberal and still a white supremacist, right?
Yes.
Like, I would be very clear,
Absolutely.
right? That doesn't necessarily mean conservative white power is the predominant folks in power. I think it could span a lot of political ideologies and still have these things embedded in how you govern and how you lead and how you make decisions. However, when you talk about bending the knee, that is a wild way, I think, to look at society finally trying in some ways to right the wrongs of its ills.
It's not so wild. I mean, even like your supposedly white politicians, you look at what they did in 2020, they quite literally bent the knee. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, the entire Democrat basically caucus in Congress literally bent the knee to George Floyd and to Black Lives Matter. Like, they quite literally did that.
And that was a bad thing?
I think it was a stupid thing. I
Why?
think it was just ridiculous pandering
So
to
Black
a
lives do not
terrorist
matter?
movement ran by.
Yeah, please, yeah.
Black lives do not matter?
I do think that Black Lives Matter. I don't support the movement known as Black Lives Matter.
Do you ever say all lives matter?
Of course. As a Christian, I
There it
absolutely
is.
believe
All lives matter.
Absolutely.
Well, let me put this back into some more concrete terms. So I guess to try to understand the conflict here that you guys are having, what role do you think Asian Americans have as far as the larger injustices and racism that this country has exhibited and has pushed it forward in the 200 years prior to even our arrival? But I guess the easiest way to make it something to talk about is the concept of the model minority myth. When you hear that word, what does it mean to you?
So the model minority myth, after World War II, they used us to separate other people of color. They used our race to say that we were the best race, that we were the model minority because we were the smartest, we got the best jobs, we did these things, and we were able to assimilate to what their idea of what they wanted. They wanted an example to use of people of color that they could then use against all the other people of color. And what they also did is they caused infighting between our communities so that we wouldn't look at the actual problem, which was white supremacy. When I think of the model minority myth, I grew up wanting to be white. I fucking hate that about myself. Like, it is so embarrassing.
Okay, so statistically, it is true that Asians, right, on average, make more money, in terms of medium, make more money, better test scores, get into better colleges, all that stuff. I think the question is, why is that? And I don't know, model minority, whatever that label wants
That's
to mean.
actually a myth because we cannot be.
Well, no, listen, well, let me finish my point. We need to observe what makes people successful and unsuccessful. And I think when you look at trends that are generally true in the Asian community, not of everyone, but are generally true, usually you have families that are sticking together. You have, people are taught to work hard in school, not get.
This idiot just keeps shaking his head as if what? That's not true. This guy's a total moron. He doesn't understand. In the Indian Pakistani community, I can give you, this is not anecdote. This is a factual statement that I'm making. We probably know, since we've moved around in various parts of the country, I would say close to maybe 3,000 families where we've lived and whatever and stuff like that. Okay, 3,000 families roughly, since, born and raised here in the United States. So over 3,000 families. We know of, I think maybe 4, maybe 5 of those families I've heard, there was a divorce. Out of those families, it just doesn't happen that much. And it's not because there's no divorce accepted within the Asian community. It's just that culture and that whatever that's instilled by your parents and grandparents or whatever, Asian families stay together. And it's just a fact. And this kid here just basically shaking his head, no, just doesn't, he's just delusional, absolute delusion on these parts. And I'm sure we're going to see more of this head shaking from, Purple Woman over here, Purple Rain over here.
Into trouble. I think that translates to why Asians en masse are successful. And I don't think you have to be Asian or white for that matter to not have kids out of wedlock, not, commit crime, not cause trouble or whatever it is. It's just a matter of common sense. That's what makes people successful. And if that's so-called assimilation, having a nuclear family, buying a house, going to school, whatever it is, then yeah, okay, call me a pro-assimilation then.
I think there's a difference between assimilation and erasure. Yes. The way that you're kind of going about it seems like, okay, of course, we want to be in community with people. And I don't think there's a problem with being in community with people from different backgrounds. That's not the issue. It's also embracing the diversity that we inherently have and accepting that and being okay with that and celebrating that.
That's very idealistic, I think, but I think we should acknowledge the fact that diversity, quote unquote, is not a factor that is our strength. It's not a factor that historically or even in the current strengthens societies. People don't come together, form societies, form families, form communities because they have nothing in common. They come together and do those things because they have something in common, right?
They talk about race in such black and white terms. The way you talk about it is it's either with America, whatever your definition of America, or not. You're talking in very black and white terms, and that's actually the problem in discussing race, because we're Asian Americans, we're neither black, we're neither white. When you're having a race discussion, you can't be talking about in such like lines.
Yeah.
Everything is in the gray.
The more in common that a society has with one another, the more likely they are to work together and build things in
Okay,
society
I hear
and not
you.
constantly be fighting each other and at odds with each other.
Did you think the Japanese internment was a good thing? Because that was a real assimilation situation. You know what I mean?
No,
Do you
I
recognize
don't.
that the term assimilation has negative history and facts associated with that word? So we do have to be careful in how we choose, because assimilation for people of color have not been good to us historically. That's factual. So let me ask you.
We're discussing the model minority myth
but
and the fact
Japanese
that
internment is a classic example of assimilating Asian Americans.
no,
So
it's
do you
not.
think
It's a
that-
classic example of internment. I mean, they intern people.
Why?
Like, it's
Why?
Not,
Yes.
To
Why did they
correlate that to
Why did they intern them? Because they saw them as other. Because they saw them as dangerous.
not really. Because, well, yes, they saw them as dangerous because, and I don't agree with it, but left-wing president FDR at the time saw it as a national security
So
risk.
you're
or
a
whatever.
Republican, right?
So
You're
let's-
right wing, right?
I want to make sure that we move this.
That's you saw that kid on the left. You saw Purple Rain Woman. Okay, talking about internment. You know, was that good? Of course, that wasn't. I mean, that's one of those instances again in the chapter history of the United States of America. It is a black eye, or should I say, you know, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I mean, that is just a chapter of American history that was not good, but it happened, and we've moved past that. And those Japanese people that were interned, that generation and future generation that have gone on to do amazing things and become a part of the fabric of the American society. But they don't claim to that victim mentality. That victim mentality is being shown by many of these, is shown by that one lady, the one girl who said she was biracial, she's Japanese and black. It's victim mentality is being shown by the girl, Purple Rain Woman. It's being shown by the young man who's, sitting right next to her. It's being shown by that other gentleman who's to the right of Vince. Every time you can see him, I mean, he's like, oh, like that. His mouth is open. He's like looks like he's going to have a freaking, meltdown right there. He's like triggered with everything that Vince says. So anyways, let's continue.
This way to keep talking about it. And thank you for all the passion on this. And I think there's a lot to unpack. Joyce, tell me about your feelings about the model minority myth. What does it make you think about?
For me, I don't think race should be an issue in anything. Like, when we want to make a decision, we should not put race as a factor. Living in New York City, we're the melting pot of the world, so I haven't actually experienced any of these biases. And if we keep continuing to live on, remembering how history was, we're never going to move further. So I identify myself as American, and in this country, it's the only country person can be a millionaire the next day. So based on capitalism, we all have an opportunity, and we should not use race as a factor in either getting ahead or depriving ourselves of opportunities.
I have a question directly related to the fact that you live in New York, right?
Yeah.
And you're Asian women. There have been significant high crimes towards Asian women that were all over the news. Did that affect you? And what were your thoughts on that?
The government is telling us that it's Asian hate, but that's not the real issue. The real issue is actually that these people were mentally ill and they were let out.
Or both can be the issue, right?
Yeah,
it can simultaneously exist as issues.
You can't say that it's Asian hate and use that as propaganda.
Propaganda?
I feel like also to just say that these people are mentally ill is a kind of an ableist argument too, because there's plenty of people who are mentally ill who are not going out and killing Asian people on the street.
All these attacks that you're seeing the videos of in San Francisco, New York City, newsflash, they're not being prosecuted as hate crimes. So the more correct way to look at it is what is the primary perpetrator of violence against Asians overall, right? Because if we talk about these videos, we have to count them in the statistics, and we're not doing that. And when we do that, we find, well, I'll tell you this, the plurality top perpetrator of violence against Asians, number one is not.
Here it goes. Look at this guy here. He's always doing this, doing this thing or whatever. I know exactly where Vince is going with this thing here. That the number one perpetrator, these are FBI statistics and stuff like that. It's not whites committing crimes or hate crimes against Asians that living in America, it is blacks. That's a fact. That's just a fact. Blacks are committing more crimes in proportion to the number of blacks that are 13%. That's why they say the incarceration rate is, so much higher proportionality wise of blacks in prison than they are in the population. Well, people say, well, why? Well, because they're committing more crimes. I mean, for example, if whites make up about 60% of the, of the country, and let's say, for example, that you saw that out of 60%, but you said out of the offenders that were doing it, 80% were being committed by white people. Well, then you know what? You would say that you're not going to say that they're predisposed to, violence or whatever. The common basic is that that group that happen to be white are committing more crimes. Figure out the reasons why they're committing them or what crimes they're committing, but they're committing them. It's as simple as that. So, I mean, basically, and then to use the word, that she said, it's just propaganda. I mean, exactly that's what it is. So there's a whole rash. I mean, look, Jewish people are being assaulted, are being, beaten. Hate crimes against Jewish people. It's happening against Muslim Americans and Muslim immigrants. It's happening against all kinds of, it's happening. Look at what's happening in Chicago. These are US citizens, black on black crime, black on white crime. There's also white on, there's also white on white crime. There's also white on various ethnic crime as well. But the majority, if you take a look at it, it is being done by blacks. It is being done within look at the gangs, Hispanic gangs. How many Asian gangs are running around New York City? How many Japanese gangs are there? Chinese gangs are there? They're doing all kinds of things. I mean, they're involved. We know that they're involved in Chinatown and other smaller, in New York and Chinatown or whatever. But I mean, do you hear about it happening over in San Francisco, in Los Angeles? The Bloods and the Crips? I mean, are they Asian? I mean, I'm sure that there might, but you know what? It's not the preponderance. It's not like you've got 30 or 40 or 50, Asian gangs, running around. That's just not happening. It's just not. The gangs that are out there are predominantly black, predominantly Hispanic. That's a fact. That's just a fact, folks. That's just a fact. Anyways, this was part 2. We're going to continue this. Keep looking for our videos, from Vice on Asian Americans or American Asians. And we thank you for watching. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I've been your guest host. My name is Dr. Nasir. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. Like, share, and follow us. Put your comments down below. Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. And I'll leave you with my final thought, which is, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. We'll see you again next time, folks. Take care and stay safe.